Time to start talking about what I want to read going into 2024. Hey everyone, welcome back to the next chapter. My name is Christopher Navo and I'm going to be your host. If this is your first time joining, thank you for stopping by. I do appreciate it. Please leave a like and a comment. Let me know what you think of the content. Today's video is going to be one of three, covering everything I want to get to on my TBR going into 2024. Now, this particular video is going to cover standalone books. They could be mostly science fiction and fantasy. But I also have a couple of other genres thrown in here. So these are the books that either been on my TBR the longest or just ones that just, I've been so excited to get to, but just whether I have ongoing series or just wasn't in the mood at the time, I never got to them. So this by no means is every book that's a standalone that I want to get to. There's probably more that I can add, but this is just kind of like a starting point for me of the most anticipated reads for me. So without any further ado, let's get started. This list is in no particular order, but first up I have Neuromancer. This is by William Gibson. Now, Gibson is a very prominent author in the science fiction genre, but not only that, he is one of the original voices, if not the original voice, to the cyberpunk subgenre. And I've always been fascinated with this subgenre of science fiction. It's probably my personal favorite, even though I haven't read too much in this subgenre. I am only kind of going by a lot of the media, whether it's through the Cyberpunk 2077 video game or, of course, Blade Runner is a big influence for me. I remember seeing that as a kid, and that's kind of always stuck with me. I did read Do Androids Dream of Electronic Sheep, which is Blade Runner is based on, but I haven't really explored too many more books or literature in this subgenre, and I can't think of any better one to do than Neuromancer, which is probably one of the first in the subgenre. I mean, this is way back before internet was mainstream, and to talk about things like hacking and virtual reality and just sounds so appealing to me. I'd be curious to see Gibson's predictions before this all became mainstream. So definitely high on my list for a science fiction read. Next up here, I got Snow Crash by Neil Stephenson. This is another very prominent book in the cyberpunk subgenre. Now, the difference is here, Stevenson takes takes that cyberpunk, all those tropes that exist in what you're familiar with, such as unchecked technology, mega corporations, all of those little tropes, and just dials it to 100, kind of on purpose, because he approaches this in a little more of a satire, kind of like humorous kind of way. So I'm very curious to see how that comes off in the pages of this book. It's a very popular book, so I'm pretty excited to see how it resonates with me. Next up, I have Perdido Street Station. This is by China Mieville. Now, I'm not too familiar with this author's work. I have never read anything by this author, and I thought I'd give this a go in 2024. I don't know too much about this book. I do know it gets a lot of conflicting opinions, but in the end, everybody determined that they liked it, kind of thing. And that really intrigues me. I don't know anything about this book at all. It comes off a little bit to me like science fantasy, maybe a little bit of like a steampunk aesthetic to it. I could be wrong. You can correct me in the comments. But needless to say, it sounds like a very unique world that China presents. And I also understand that I think it does fall under a series, but each book in this series is a standalone. I think the second one is called The Scar. But I'm going to start with Perdido Street Station, see if it clicks with me, see if this author is going to be somebody I'm going to explore more in the future. So fourth up here, guys, I have is Spirits of Vengeance by Rob J. Hayes. This is book 3 of the Mortal Techniques series, but each book that takes place in the Mortal Techniques universe can be read as a standalone. The first 2 books, Never Die and Pawn's Gambit, I read earlier this year. And, well, spoiler warning, guys, Never Die is going to be in my top 10 books I read for 2023. Pawn's Gambit is a very strong contender, but I'm only picking 1 book per author, so I went with Never Die being the first book. Both of those books are equal the size of this book, so they're very quick reads, and he just puts together these engaging characters, this beautiful, very picturesque kind of like Eastern Asian inspired world. There's a lot of action scenes, and he does those so well. This is an indie author that really just kickstarted me into reading more indie books, and how much more I feel more enriched from reading books like this, because they're not, mainstream, they're not traditionally published. And it just goes to show that they just have just amazing voices out there that are just, I don't think are being heard enough. And he's got more series coming up, and I just can't wait to dig into more of his books. But I want to read Spirits of Vengeance first. So speaking of indie books, this next book I really wanted to get to in 2023, but it just didn't work. I kept postponing it off for a couple reasons, and that is The Sword of Kaigen by M.L. Wang. Now I saw this, believe first featured on Patrick Leo's channel, and I immediately was sold on it. I think initially meant to read it in the beginning of 2023, and I was just reading some other books at the time. I was reading Rob J. Hayes's Never Die and Pawn's Gambit, so I didn't want to dive into something that was maybe similar. Then I found out they were doing a Kickstarter for this book, and I decided I'd wait until I got the Kickstarter arrived, because this thing is gorgeous. And so it kind of postponed that again, and now pretty soon it's the end of the year, so definitely moved into 2024. Can't wait to get to this book. It just looks like just something I'm going to love. You put this Asian inspired world, samurai swords, I'm sold. This next book, I'm going in totally blind. The books I mentioned previously, I kind of have an inkling of what they're about, but this next book, I have no idea what it's about, and I'm going to keep it that way. But it's highly praised within the booktube community, and that is The Spirit Cuts Through Water by Simon Jimenez. I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. In the booktube community space particularly, a lot of people are giving this book some high praise. Particular call-outs are Evie from the channel She Was Only Evie, as well as Dan from the Black and Blue Collar Reader. Both of them highly praise this book, and are kind of like giving everybody like little nudges to pick up this book. There is a potential buddy read for this. I don't know if I'm going to make it to the buddy read, because I think it is the start of the year. I have another book I have planned that is actually coming up on this list that I want to get to in January. That's going to be more priority for me. I would love to be part of that, but there's a couple buddy reads going on with this book in the year anyway, so we'll see. But maybe I'll change things, because again, I'm more of a mood reader now. So if the mood hits me, I'm going to read that book. But yeah, definitely something I'm very intrigued to know what this book is about, and we'll find out. So number 7 is more so like a group of work by one author that are all standalone, and that is the works of Guy Gavriel Kay. Now, I initially meant to read Guy Gavriel Kay also in 2023. There was a buddy read for The Lions of Al-Rassan on one of the Discords, and I was hoping to participate in that. Unfortunately, it did fall during my kind of like my hiatus from reading and booktube and all that, so I didn't partake in that. And so Guy Gavriel Kay got kind of pushed into 2024. I initially had him as one of those top 5 authors I have yet to read anything from. I link that video in the cards. That was like kind of one of my first videos, I think, way back in spring. So you can check that out. Yeah, I just never got to him. So the one particularly here I'm going to start off with is a song for Arbonne. This is going to be a buddy read in February. This is one of my more confirmed slotted books for the year. So I'm really excited to finally dig into his work. I'm really surprised I haven't actually read anything by this author. He has a lot of inspiration of historical realism in his books. He takes like real historical events and places them in these fantasy worlds. So it's one of those authors I'm just really surprised at. I heard he's got a very rich prose. Maybe that kind of put me off a little bit because I'm more of a straightforward kind of prose kind of guy. But I'm still very excited to finally dig into some Guy Gavriel. And again, A Song for Arbonne is going to be the first book I'm going to read. And that, again, is going to be a planned buddy read in February. Number 8 is also a group of standalone books by one author. This is of The World of First Law by Joe Abercrombie. This is the books Best Served Cold, The Heroes, and Red Country. I read the First Law trilogy, which includes The Blade itself, Before They Were Hanged, and The Last Argument of Kings, twice. I read the series originally when it was probably around when it was first published, and then more recently, late 2022, I read it again, only with the audio book version of it with Steve Pacey, which, by the way, I highly recommend. So this year, I really want to hit up the standalones here. I'm highly looking forward to getting to his second trilogy, which is the Age of Madness trilogy. But I'm going to read these in publication order, and I'm going to hit the standalones next, with the first one being Best Served Cold. I hope to finish all 3 books into 2024. At number 9, I have Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. This book is one of those books I know 100% nothing about, and from what people tell me, that's how you need to approach this book. It's a unique reading experience. It's kind of like the summary I get from a lot of people. And most people put this on their top reads of the year list. So I'll be curious if I also put it on a pedestal in 2024. At number 10, I have The One and Future King by T.H. White. Now, I've been hammering to read an Arthurian legend again for a while now. I was actually planning to reread The Warlord Chronicles by Bernard Cornwell, and seeing that I had The Once and Future King on the show, I was looking it over and I realized I haven't read this yet, which is odd because this is a classic. It was just on my shelf probably as a gift or just something I just had in my inventory. So I definitely wanted to remedy that. It definitely moved up on the list because of that. And it's just one book, so I won't feel like overwhelmed by reading another series for the legend. And yeah, I'm excited to dig into that classic legend of King Arthur. Speaking of books that I am surprised I haven't read yet, next up is Augustus by John Williams. Guys, I majored in archaeology with a minor in classic and ancient history, and John Williams's Augustus never came up during that time in my life, and I don't know why I never saw this book until recently. So this immediately moved up on my list. Now, John Williams is another very well talked about author here in the booktube community anyway. I believe one of his other works is Stoner. That book I've seen mentioned several times. So when approaching his work, obviously my first choice was Augustus. I mean, this is the founder of the Roman Empire. So needless to say, it was going to be my go-to choice when I pick up a John Williams book. And yeah, I'm really excited to not only pick up a new author, but maybe a little bit of a change from a lot of the fantasy that is on prominently on my list and mix it up, of course, with some more historical fiction. So this 12th book is going to be something a little bit different, something a little bit unique. I've been wanting to read from this author for a long time. And the first book that I picked up by this author is probably its most popular, and that is The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. Now, Paulo's books are probably considered like philosophical, mystical fiction. You often find these books in the metaphysics section of bookstores, if they have that section. I'm not sure where they would put those otherwise. What his books are tend to provide to readers are like little nuggets of thought and inner wisdom. And that's kind of what you're supposed to take away from his books. And The Alchemist comes one of those books that just is supposed to really affect you, in that kind of way on a spiritual level. And they are fictional books, so I think they would fit in fine with the channel content. So I want to give this first one a go. And like I said, I think it's just going to be a nice palate cleanser to the otherwise predominant sci-fi and fantasy reads that I have going on. I do have one final bonus standalone read for 2024. I kind of threw it on here because technically it is an actual series of books. I don't know whether you can read these as standalones or not. I'm not too sure. This is a recent add-on, and that is Shogun by James Clavell. Now, as much as I love historical fiction, and I love Eastern history a lot, I guess I've always been kind of intimidated on reading this book. And it's a 7-book series from my understanding. So it was just never something that really initially appealed to me. It just looked very thick and heavy material to digest. That is until I believe FX decided to make a TV adaptation of this coming early in 2024. And I'm like, I saw the trailer and I'm like, God, that looks good. And now I want to read the book. So Shogun is going to be actually an early read into January, probably. I added onto my standalone list because I'm only going to read that first book. If I decide to continue on with the series, if it's something that I learn to enjoy, I will pick up the second book, Taipan, at some point, but I don't think it will be until maybe the end of the year of 2024. We'll see. But yeah, Shogun is a last minute add-on, and it's going to be one of my first reads going into the new year. And that's my initial list for standalones going into 2024, guys. What did you think of any of these reads? Do they sound interesting to you? What do you recommend as a standalone to read that maybe I did not mention? Let me know in the comments. My name is Christopher Navo. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. And I hope to see you in the next chapter. Take care.